Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your instructor, Dale Robison, and I teach both macro and microeconomics for South Plains College. And these videos, I'm going to attempt to try to make a series of videos primarily for my internet students that are taking either macro or microeconomics or dual credit economics that I hope will help enhance some of the material that you're reading and therefore taking your exams based on the material in those chapters. Now these videos are going to be a series of about 10 to 15 minutes long each. And hopefully through these videos it will help you do better and be more successful in my class as far as taking macro or microeconomics through our internet system and through Blackboard. Today's video is focusing on the first 4 chapters of your textbook, and of course your textbook is Economics for Today, and I'm currently using the 8th edition by Irving B. Tucker. And I'm going to focus on simply today, briefly, on a few vocabulary terms that you will find also with the notes that you have access. I have given you notes to kind of further help explain and clarify some of these economic terms that you will be seeing throughout, particularly chapters 1 through 4, and periodically referred to throughout the remaining chapters that you will study for your course. Feel free to always ask me questions through Blackboard, and according to your syllabus, I would like for your questions to always be referred to me through Blackboard, and I will respond to you through Blackboard. So if you have a copy of your notes, that is fine, but I will put them on the overhead as I kind of address some of these key terms that you'll be exposed to that I've found in the past tend to give students a little bit of a problem. And maybe through these videos, through my explanation using other examples that maybe you don't find in the book, this will help clarify and clear up any confusion you have about what is being implied or what is being referred to with the use of a lot of these basic economic terms. Now, a lot of terms that we use in economics are terms that we use every day that we're really already familiar with. And the way that students and society already understands these terms is exactly the way we refer to them in applying them to economics. What they mean for you is exactly what we mean when we study economics as well. So a lot of terms are things that we already understand. Now I'm going to refer to the list and put it on the screen. The list that is available to you, my internet students. And these are the notes that I think you're familiar with. And I'm just going to refer to this. And the first term that you see, number 1, is opportunity cost. And it says it has to do with decisions that you make all the time. Any time that you make a decision, one part of the decision you're going to accept, you're going to go with. The other part you're not. And it's that part of a decision that you don't accept, that you choose not to go with, that is your opportunity cost. Just like it says, it's what you sacrifice for the next best alternative. Now, what you as an individual consider the best alternative may be different between you and another individual. And regardless of these choices, keep in mind that they don't have to be of, say, the same price value. They each don't have to cost, say, $5 each. They can be of greater or lesser value. And obviously they don't have to be the same good either. Okay? For example, let me give you an example. You know, we eat out all the time. And let's say that you're an individual that likes Mexican food. And so you like to eat a beef enchilada plate. And then somebody else likes to eat pizza. So if I gave you, an individual that likes Mexican food, a choice of an enchilada plate or a pepperoni pizza, and you choose obviously the enchilada plate, then what you sacrificed was the pepperoni pizza. The pepperoni pizza was your opportunity cost. It's what you decided not to accept, what you decided not to go with or choose. That was your opportunity cost. So even in that simple example, no matter how big or how small the decisions are that we make, every decision has an opportunity cost. Now, the cost of the pizza and the cost of the enchilada dinner obviously would not be the same. The enchilada plate, in my opinion, would probably cost more than the pepperoni pizza. And we don't choose the most expensive item every time we make a decision, okay? Somebody else may automatically choose the pepperoni pizza because it's what they want, it's what meets their needs at that time. And if they chose the pepperoni pizza, then their opportunity cost was the enchilada dinner. And they don't have to be the same good, and they don't have to be of equal or greater value. That's what opportunity cost deals with all the time. Now, looking at another one, going back to our list, I'll come back and talk about the law of increasing opportunity costs later on, maybe in another video, particularly when I introduce you to the production possibilities curve. Going to number 3, scarcity. Anything and everything you can think of is limited. There may appear to be a lot of that particular good or resource, but in reality it all has a limited amount. And the word scarcity is the foundation of economics. The fact that everything is scarce, that everything is limited, is the primary reason for studying economics, no matter what we're studying. Factors of production. Primarily here, you just need to remember land, labor, and capital. Those are the 3 categories, or the 3 factors of production. And anything that you can think of, if it's not included as land or labor, it's going to fall under the capital. Capital is like the big catch-all category, okay? If it's not land or labor. Capital would be anything that is necessary for a business to produce or provide a good or service. And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, since there's so many types of businesses out there in our economy, what one business needs in order to stay in business or to operate its business and produce that good or service that it is in the business of providing may be totally different capital needs than what another company needs in order to operate its business. So just think of capital as anything that a individual or a company needs in order to provide that good or service that they are in the business of providing. And you can see that it can be most anything. It can be tools, it can be equipment, machinery, buildings, warehouses, anything, as long as it's not just land or not just labor. The only thing that goes under land is land, and the only thing under labor is labor. Everything else is capital. Referring back to our list, investment. Think of investment as spending. When you purchase a good from any company, you're basically investing in that company. And investing creates more goods and services in the economy. Okay? So basically think of investment as spending when you see that word in economics. Okay? And of course, companies are going to invest in those capital items, if it's not land or labor, that they have to produce their goods and services. In the definition of economics, again, notice how it refers to the law of scarcity. And that basically refers back to our definition, which is number 3 about scarcity, which is the basis and the foundation of studying economics. Ceteris paribus is a Latin term, and the term itself, as given to you here in your notes, it simply means all things are equal or constant. Now, we apply this concept, and as you read anything as it pertains to economics, you will often see ceteris paribus. A good example in one of the 4 chapters is the law of demand and the law of supply. When you read the actual law of demand or law of supply, it will usually end with those 2 Latin terms, ceteris paribus, meaning anything else is held constant or equal, meaning that it doesn't change. And we use ceteris paribus, the concept, the meaning of that all the time in economics. You see, for example, when we're studying macroeconomics, we can't talk about and explain everything that is occurring in the economy and how it relates to one another and why it is happening all at one time. When you study economics, you focus on 2 or 3 factors, and any other factor that affects that relationship, say between those 2 factors, we're going to hold constant or ceteris paribus, so that we can clearly see and understand the relationship between those 2 factors. Once we understand that relationship, we'll hold those constant, and we'll go over and understand the relationship, say, between 2 or 3 other factors, holding everything constant. And that's kind of how we study economics, why it's referred to all the time. It's kind of like looking at a big picture that is a picture of a whole bunch of little pictures put together, and it tells you a story. Sometimes you may refer to it or seen it in a museum like a mural. Well, when you see a big picture like that, say, explains the history of a region, you will focus on one part of the picture and understand what that's saying. Then you'll go to another picture and understand what that's saying. And you'll continue to do that as you study that whole picture until finally you understand the whole picture. And that's kind of the idea, by example, of how we study economics and the meaning of ceteris paribus. Of course, the difference between macro and microeconomics really kind of focus on the prefix. The prefix micro means small, the prefix macro means big. So when you study macroeconomics, you're applying economic principles and theories and laws and terms that refer to the whole economy. Say the whole economy of the United States, or the whole economy of Japan, the whole economy of Australia, the whole economy of China. But micro meaning small, you're only focusing and applying economics to individual sectors or individual businesses within the whole macroeconomy, or that make up a part or a small part of the whole economy. Going to the next page, positive and normative economics. What I tell my students, my face-to-face class students, is think of positive economics as economic statements which more or less is describing the way the economy is. It is more or less stating the facts, the way it is actually right now. For example, on the day that I'm making this video, unemployment in the United States is 4.9%. That is a fact. That's what the unemployment rate is now in our economy. But normative economics is more like an opinion, what you think it should or ought to be. If I told you, for example, that unemployment is 4.9%, but it ought to be closer to 4.6%, say at the end of the second quarter of this year. Notice the difference. It's now a normative economic statement. I'm telling you what I think it should or ought to be by the end of the second quarter of this year. The principle of unintended consequences. You know, things happen to us all the time. We've all experienced where things happen in our daily lives that we just simply don't see coming, that are totally unexpected, didn't intend for it to happen. Well, that is the principle of unintended consequences in its broadest sense. That principle can be applied to anything that happens to a business, an individual, that was totally unexpected and unintended. So the name really defines itself. Oftentimes, though, in economics, we apply the same principle to policies, either fiscal or monetary policies that you'll study later on in macroeconomics, that are initiated and applied to the economy, hopefully for a good effect, but unfortunately the results of that policy results in things that we didn't see coming, that were unexpected, that were unintended. Okay? That's the idea behind the principle of unintended consequences. Okay, let's go look at another one. Marginal analysis. We talk a lot about marginal analysis, okay? And we do a lot of cause and effect in economics. And we measure the changes in those causes, in those effects due to a certain cause. Really, anytime you see the word marginal, just like it says in your notes, it means a change in, okay? And particularly in microeconomics, it's going to be, as I've given you examples, a change in some total amount, a change in some total value, like total costs, total revenues, total utility, okay? So marginal is going to be the change in some total amount, whatever we're referring to. Easiest way to understand when you see anything where it says marginal, okay, in your textbook. Inflation, think of it primarily like it says, and like we already understand and know. When you hear that there is inflation in the economy, it's a general increase in prices, not the price of one good, but a general increase in the prices of all goods and services that you might need or want. And of course, the opposite is deflation. Relative prices. When we shop and we purchase goods and services, one of the things that we always look at that helps us make up our mind if we want to purchase that good and how much of that good we want to purchase, we're always going to look at the price. And there's a lot of other factors, obviously, that come into play with regard to the items that we purchase or that we consume other than the price. A lot of these will later on be referred to as determinants of demand or demand curve shifters. Same thing occurs with businesses. They look at the prices they have to pay for the raw resources necessary to produce their goods and services and the cost of their labor, okay? These prices that you see every day that help along with other factors you decide what you're going to purchase and how much is simply the relative price. Relative prices are what you see all the time, every day, every time you purchase a good or service. There's another type of price, the next term, which is known as money prices. The way I like to explain this to students is that if you'll think of the exchange rate, if I were to say, what is the exchange rate? Some of you might realize that I'm talking about the value of one world currency as compared to the value of another world currency. For example, we know there's many other different world currencies other than the US dollar. There's the peso, there's the yen, there's the won, there's the ruble, there's the pound. So we're familiar with some of these other world currencies. And the value of one currency will be different than the value of another currency when we're comparing the two. But the best way to think about money prices is to think about the exchange rate. For example, say a U.S. General Motors vehicle, say a pickup, a basic pickup may cost, for example, 50,000 euros if it was to be purchased in Europe. That same pickup purchased in the United States may cost $45,000. So we can see from that example that the value of that same pickup costs more in Europe than it does the United States because it takes more euros than dollars to purchase that same vehicle. So really, all money prices are, ladies and gentlemen, is simply the value of goods and services expressed in different world currencies or monetary units. Finally, looking at our list, and just to keep the initial video a little short, we see economics of scale. And notice that I wrote the word size after scale, because that's the meaning of the word scale as implied by economics of scale. It just refers to size, big versus small. Now, it says it's the production of large volumes of output cheaper than you can produce smaller volumes of the same output. So we're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges here. We're talking about the same good. In an example I'd like to use that you may be familiar with, if you look at Walmart and Kmart and Target, we all know that they are retail stores that sell and provide a lot of various consumer goods. And you will find the same goods to a great extent in all three of those stores. Now, if we're compared to the size, I think most of us would agree that Walmart overall is a bigger company compared to Target or Kmart. And a lot of us shop at Walmart because sometimes we find that we can purchase a particular good cheaper there than we might find the same good at the other two stores or any other store. Now, since Walmart is bigger, they have probably the opportunity to purchase larger quantities because they have to purchase larger quantities of a particular good. And if they so decide, they get a deeper discount and they can pass those discounts to you, the consumer, usually in the form of a cheaper price. And so, in comparison, if we use this example, Walmart can simply provide maybe some or several goods, a larger volume of these goods at a cheaper price than, say, Target or Kmart, for example, can provide the same good or smaller quantities of the same good. And that's what it's talking about when it's referring to economics of scale. It's just big versus small. And then finally, the next term on your list is a market. And it really probably doesn't deserve any explanation because you and I have been participating in markets all our lives. We already know what a market is. Any business that you go to, the grocery store, the dry cleaners, a retail clothing store, it doesn't matter. They all represent individual markets. And we know that markets can exist for a short period of time and then be gone. Some markets have existed and continue to exist today, and we hear about it often, like the stock market. But any place that you go to in order to meet your needs and wants in consumer or business goods and services is going to be representative of a market. It's anywhere you go to exchange, purchase, or sell goods and services. And we also do that through the internet. I'm sure a lot of us have purchased things through the internet. That is a market. So markets can be temporary, they can be permanent, they can be big, they can be small. And in most cases, the seller and the buyer do not physically have to be present with each other for a market to exist. Again, my example there would be the internet, or going to the grocery store where the seller is obviously represented by the goods that are on the shelves. That's where I'm going to end our initial video, and I hope that you find this helpful. And on the next video, I will continue with some of these key terms that you will find as you review primarily chapters 1 and 4. Thank you.